Somewhere right now, someone is studying harder than you. They wake before sunrise, they fill journals, they finish courses, highlight paragraphs, consume podcasts on 1.5 times speed while commuting, while eating, while pretending to sleep. They are relentless, they are disciplined, and in 10 years, almost nothing will have changed for them. This is not cynicism. This is a pattern so consistent across human history that ignoring it is its own kind of delusion. The world is full of incredibly well-read people who are completely stuck, brilliant minds trapped inside lives that refuse to move. And the cruelest part is this. The very act of consuming knowledge gives them the feeling that they are progressing. Psychologists call it the illusion of competence. When you read something, when you watch something, when you recognize an idea, your brain releases a small reward, a whisper of dopamine, a quiet sense of, I understand this now. And that feeling, that small neurological pat on the back, is enough to make you confuse exposure to an idea with transformation by it. Think of it this way. You can read every book ever written about swimming. You can memorize the biomechanics of the freestyle stroke, study the lung capacity of Olympic athletes, and recite the history of competitive swimming from ancient Greece to the present. And then you step into the water and you drown. Information stored is not wisdom embodied. The trap is subtle because it feels like virtue. Reading feels like effort, taking notes feels like progress, and in a culture that worships productivity signaling, the person buried under books looks like someone who is doing the work. But there is a difference, a vast, canyon-wide difference, between loading your memory with data and actually restructuring the cognitive framework through which you interpret reality. Your cognitive framework is not what you know. It is the invisible architecture of how you think, your assumptions, your blind spots, your default interpretations of failure, success, risk, and other people. It is built early, reinforced by every experience you've had, and it quietly governs every decision you make without asking your permission. And here is the brutality. You can add 1,000 books to your memory without touching that framework once. The library grows, the door stays shut. In 1988, Stephen Hawking published A Brief History of Time. It sold over 10 million copies. It attempted to answer the grandest questions a human mind could hold. How did the universe begin? What is the nature of time? What are the fundamental laws that govern all of existence? And Hawking, the most brilliant cosmologist of his generation, a man who mapped the mathematics of black holes from a wheelchair using only the muscles in his cheek, eventually arrived at a wall. Science could explain how the universe operates. It could describe the mechanics with breathtaking precision, but it could not answer the question that hides beneath every other question: why does anything exist at all? This is not a small failure. This is the confession at the edge of the known world. Physics, at its frontier, bleeds into philosophy. The equations run out, and what remains is silence and wonder and a very human need to keep asking. So humanity turned, as it always eventually does, toward metaphysics, toward the ancient and the mystical, toward astrology, toward fate, toward the idea that perhaps the answers are written not in the stars themselves, but in our relationship to them. Entire civilizations were built on the premise that the cosmos held a blueprint for individual destiny, that if you could decode the heavens, you could decode your life. But even metaphysics, at its deepest, circles back. Because the universe is not trying to tell you about the universe. The universe is trying to tell you about yourself. 24 centuries ago, carved into the stone of the Temple of Apollo at Delphi were two words that Socrates believed contained the entire project of human wisdom: know thyself. Not know the stars, not know the markets, not know the algorithms. Know thyself. Socrates never wrote a single book. He owned nothing. He walked barefoot through Athens, asking questions that made powerful men uncomfortable, and for that, they eventually made him drink poison. And yet his legacy outlasted every empire that surrounded him, because he understood something that most brilliant people spend their entire lives avoiding. The largest unsolved problem in the universe is not dark matter, not consciousness, not the origin of the cosmos. It is you. The physicist studies particles, the metaphysician studies fate. But both are, in the end, projecting outward what can only be answered by turning inward. The great knowledge institutions of the world, universities, libraries, research laboratories, produce extraordinary maps. But a map is useless if you do not know where you are standing. And most people do not know where they are standing. They know their resume, they know their GPA, they know their Myers-Briggs type and their Enneagram number and their rising sign, but they do not know the specific architecture of their own self-deception. They do not know the exact shape of the wound that is steering their ambition. They do not know which of their beliefs are genuinely theirs and which were handed to them by a frightened parent or a wounded teacher before they were old enough to refuse. Science reaches the edge and says, we do not know. Metaphysics reaches the edge and says, perhaps it was written. Human nature reaches the edge and says, you were the answer all along. The journey outward always leads back to the mirror. Let us be precise now, because there is a difference between the poetic diagnosis and the surgical cure. If knowledge alone does not change fate, what does? I want to give you 3 laws, not motivational slogans, not productivity hacks. Laws. The kind that operate whether you believe in them or not, the same way gravity operates whether you believe in it or not. The first law: shatter the cognitive mirror. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "Character is fate, not intelligence, not education, not even effort. Character. And character, the deep, consistent pattern of who you are under pressure, is not fixed. It is sculpted daily by the micro-decisions you make when no one is watching." Neuroscience now confirms what the Stoics intuited. The brain is plastic. Neuroplasticity is not a self-help buzzword. It is the biological mechanism by which every repeated thought and action literally reshapes the neural pathways through which your future thinking flows. You are, at the neurological level, building yourself constantly, for better or for worse. But here is the obstacle most people never clear. You cannot rebuild what you cannot see. The cognitive mirror is your current model of reality, the lens you look through without knowing you're looking through a lens. And the most dangerous thing about it is that it always looks like the truth. Your biases don't feel like biases. They feel like correct perceptions. Your blind spots are, by definition, invisible to you. This is why the Stoics built daily practices of reflection. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men who ever lived, spent his evenings writing to himself. not to an audience, not for publication, interrogating his own motives, his own failures, his own impulses. He was Emperor of Rome. He could have done anything. He chose night after night to ask himself, where did I fall short of reason today? That practice is the practice. The willingness to be wrong about yourself is the single rarest and most powerful intellectual capacity a human being can develop. The second law: decode human nature. Every significant domain of human life, business, love, politics, investment, art, is at its foundation a human problem, not a technical problem, not an information problem, a human problem. Consider this. Every year, graduates with flawless academic records enter the corporate world armed with frameworks, theories, and case studies, and a meaningful portion of them stall, not because they lack intelligence, but because they fundamentally misread people. They misread what their manager actually wants. They misread the politics of a room. They mistake a colleague's silence for agreement when it was resentment quietly accumulating. They make decisions based on what should matter to people, rather than what actually moves people. Human beings are not rational actors who occasionally make emotional mistakes. We are emotional actors who occasionally make rational decisions. The gap between those two descriptions is the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical power. The people who navigate this well are not necessarily the most intelligent. They are the most observant. They understand that underneath every professional negotiation, every relationship, every social friction, there are the same ancient human drives. The need for status, the fear of humiliation, the hunger for belonging, the avoidance of loss. These forces do not disappear in boardrooms or lecture halls. They simply wear better clothes. Seneca wrote, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you." He understood that human proximity is not neutral. It is either corrosive or catalytic. Who you spend time with is not a lifestyle preference. It is a destiny variable. The third law: master the reality of value exchange. This is perhaps the most uncomfortable of the three, because it dismantles a comforting myth that most of us were raised on, the myth that good things come to good, hard-working, deserving people. They do not automatically. Society, every society at every level, operates on value exchange. Relationships form and sustain themselves around mutual utility. Opportunities arrive not because you deserve them, but because someone with the power to grant them perceived you as capable of delivering something they need. Your so-called network is not a collection of people who like you. It is a web of reciprocal value, and the weight you hold in that web is determined entirely by what you can offer. This is not cynicism, this is clarity, because once you understand this, you stop waiting to be discovered. You stop consuming fragmented entertainment in hopes that something will shift. You stop spreading yourself thin across 10 interests and one mediocre skill set. You begin the long, disciplined, deeply unglamorous process of building absolute expertise, a capability so refined, so specific, so genuinely useful that the world cannot root around you. The Stoics called this amor fati, love of fate. Not passive acceptance, but active engagement with reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. You do not negotiate with the laws of value exchange. You work within them until you become indispensable to the people who matter for the life you are building. Stop collecting knowledge. Start forging capability. There is an ancient framework passed through centuries of Eastern philosophy that maps the full journey of understanding. The end of science is metaphysics. The end of metaphysics is human nature. The end of human nature is awakening. And the end of awakening is the Tao, the formless, wordless, structureless truth that underlies all things. You cannot think your way to the Tao. You cannot read your way to it. You can only become someone capable of recognizing it when it appears, and that becoming is the work of a lifetime, not an afternoon. True wisdom is not knowing what is happening in the world. It is knowing with unflinching, uncomfortable honesty who you are in the world, what you fear, what you want beneath what you say you want, what you are running toward, and what, beneath the running, you are actually running from. The smartest people in the room are often the most efficiently imprisoned because their intelligence is powerful enough to build elaborate justifications for never changing, never risking, never becoming someone genuinely new. Books are not the enemy. Knowledge is not the enemy. The enemy is the unconscious use of knowledge as a substitute for transformation. The enemy is the comfort of the library that quietly replaces the discomfort of the door. Push the door open. Before you close this video, I want to leave you with one question. And I mean this not as rhetoric, but as a genuine invitation to sit with something uncomfortable. The knowledge you are consuming every day, is it helping you escape reality, or is it helping you reshape it? There is no neutral answer. Every hour is going somewhere. Every book, every video, every idea you absorb is either quietly reinforcing the walls of the room you're already in, or it is slowly giving you the tools to find the door. Leave your answer in the comments. Not what you think the right answer should be, what it actually is, right now, today. That honesty, that small, quiet act of seeing yourself clearly, is where it begins. It always begins there.